Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Maya C. 3 people are dead after a small boat believed to be carrying migrants capsized near Del Mar this morning. KPBS reporter Gustavo Solis spoke with an eyewitness.
Dan Connor was walking his dog on a bluff that overlooks the ocean around 6:30 a.m. Monday morning. That's when he noticed a small boat moving very quickly toward the shore.
The nose of the boat, the bow kind of dug into the water, and then the wave pushed the rear of the boat, and then it flips over.
Connor took a video showing more than a dozen people falling into the cold Pacific Ocean. Some of them swam to shore, while the rest held on to the overturned boat as powerful waves kept crashing onto them.
You wouldn't put your kids swimming in the ocean with that kind of surf going on. So I'm assuming these folks were absolutely tired, not sure where they came from, but this definitely is not a destination for boats to arrive.
Connor quickly called 911. According to the U.S. Coast Guard, 3 people died this morning. 4 received medical attention, and 9 remain missing.
When I heard that there were at least 3 deceased, that really broke my heart, because these are people. These are people that I don't care where someone was coming from, what they were trying to do, but they're in distress. They needed help.
Maritime smuggling events are relatively common in San Diego, with more than 600 in 2022. More recent data was not immediately available. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
Well, happy Monday, everyone. Weather headlines as we head throughout the next couple of days. Tracking for the most part some nice weather. It will be mild and breezy here for your Tuesday, but after that, we're actually going to see warmer and nicer weather here as we head throughout the next couple of days and into the weekend. And yes, that weekend, that Saturday and Sunday, looking pretty nice right now. I'll update that forecast coming up.
The National Weather Service is in worse shape than previously known due to a combination of layoffs, early retirements, and pre-existing vacancies. Most divisions of the agency were affected. Ivan Rodriguez explains the possible impact this could have as hurricane season approaches.
The Atlantic hurricane season officially begins in less than a month, and the nation's forecasting agency is in disarray as what could be a destructive season unfolds. Several current and former agency meteorologists say they're concerned forecasts and life-saving warnings are not going to be issued in time. Andy Hazelton is a hurricane hunter who is working out of the National Hurricane Center in Miami.
We're not really doing policy for the most part. We're just, especially the Weather Service, just trying to get this life-saving information out there.
He's flown into the eye of the storm countless times, including Hurricanes Helene, Dorian, and Ian.
You basically fly through the storm 3 to 4 times, and then the forecasters are getting that data in real time. They're using that for their advisories to tell people, hey, this is where the storm is, this is how strong it is.
But now he's out of that job. He was one of hundreds of employees at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, whose roles were terminated as part of the Trump administration's efforts to slim down the federal government.
They're already understaffed, and, this is just going to be an even further blow on top of that.
The National Weather Service is headed into hurricane season with 30 of its 122 weather forecast offices lacking their most experienced official, known as the meteorologist in charge. These include offices covering New York City, Cleveland, Houston, and Tampa.
It's a job that gets very, very busy whenever there's active weather, and you're responsible for keeping an eye on everything. When you don't have that position filled, you're basically asking other members of the management team to step up and do those things. And when the weather is getting very active, it's very hard to keep up with that.
Further cuts to NOAA are in the works, though the NWS may not suffer the brunt of that next round, according to internal federal documents. 5 former National Weather Service directors are also warning the American people in an open letter. Quote, NWS staff will have an impossible task to continue its current level of services. Our worst nightmare is that weather forecast offices will be so understaffed that there will be a needless loss of life. In Atlanta, I'm Ivan Rodriguez.
San Diego City Mayor Todd Gloria has been working to cut costs as the city faces a nearly $300,000 budget deficit for the 2026 fiscal year. He announced a new measure today.
Back in January, I announced that we would conduct a wholesale examination of our city's office space lease agreements. And where it was cost beneficial, I said that we would terminate or renegotiate leases and consolidate space to save taxpayer money. And I'm here to tell you that that's exactly what we are doing.
And again, that number was $300 million. Mayor Gloria says the city has renegotiated a lease agreement for the building at 525 B Street in downtown. Currently, city staff from multiple departments work on 6 floors there, and staff are moving from that building to city-owned office space at 8575 Gibbs Drive. It is expected to save around $13 million over the next 5 years. Rail passengers between San Diego and Los Angeles will need to plan ahead. Service in San Clemente has been suspended once again for emergency rail work that will continue for 5 more weeks. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne tells us what travelers can expect.
Tommy Clemens uses public transportation every day. On Sunday, he found out train service between Oceanside and San Clemente had been suspended.
I was on my way to Menifee, and from Encinitas, I found out the train was shut down once I got to Oceanside.
Clemens and all of the passengers traveling north of San Diego would need to board a bus bridge. That's nothing new. Over the past 4 years, service in San Clemente has repeatedly shut down over bluff erosion and repairs. Now, the Orange County Transportation Authority is making emergency repairs towards a longer-standing solution.
We identified these 4 hotspots as what needed to be addressed immediately. So what we're doing right now is bringing in more large boulders known as riprap to repair and reinforce mostly what's already there.
Eric Carpenter is a spokesperson for the transportation agency. He says the repairs include installation of 7,700 tons of boulders to reinforce the rail line.
So this is the very first step in that, really to focus on these 4 hotspots, make sure that this rail line is secured. And because it is such a vital rail line for passengers, millions of passengers who use it annually, for freight that comes up from San Diego and actually goes both ways between LA County, Orange County, down to San Diego.
The boulders are the first step to prevent more rail closures in this troubled area. Carpenter says the next long-term solution will be sand replenishment. Problem is, they have yet to find where to get the sand. In the meantime, rail service between San Diego and Orange County will be suspended for 5 more weeks while crews continue to work. During that time, travelers are asked to plan ahead. On Monday, all travel from Oceanside to Orange County was limited and sold out for the day. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
One of the busiest air travel hubs in the nation is in its 2nd week of mounting delays and cancellations. FlightAware tracked hundreds of impacted flights over the weekend, and Monday travel is plagued with the same, sending ripple effects throughout the aviation system. Laura Geary reports.
This is bureaucracy at its worst.
Hundreds of delays and cancellations are filling the notification boards at Newark Liberty International Airport for an unparalleled 8th day.
I'm concerned every time I fly.
These problems have been going on not just for years, but for decades.
United CEO Scott Kirby echoes the concerns of the Transportation Department's former Inspector General Mary Shivo, recently calling Newark's air traffic control facility, quote, chronically understaffed for years, compounded by last week's walkout that he said saw 20% of the airport's controllers leave. United now says it's canceling 35 flights out of Newark every day, saying in a statement that Newark Airport cannot handle the number of planes scheduled to operate there in the weeks and months ahead.
He's trying to say we can't continue to rely on the FAA, which is a huge thing to say.
A former Federal Aviation Administration safety inspector agrees air traffic controllers are at a breaking point.
They've been working 60-hour weeks for years and years.
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy cites a runway construction closure and outdated equipment failures as part of Newark's current operational struggles, but adds big changes are coming.
We're going to lay fiber. We're going to get new radar.
There are new radios, new ground sensors, the equipment that is facing the controllers to all the back-end equipment.
We have 500 plus airports in the United States. They have different equipment. So it's not the same system wherever you go. Secretary Duffy has to do this, but it will take years.
Time that many anxious air travelers don't have.
Have a lot of travel coming up, so hopefully they can resolve this quickly.
I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
A psychiatry professor at UC San Diego says a meditation-based therapy is shown to be effective in reducing chronic pain and lowering use of opioid medication. KPBS SciTech reporter Thomas Fudge tells us about that and about a man who has used the therapy to get better.
Dan Kruger. Dan, you're very, very welcome across here. Dan Kruger is a motorcycle racer at the top of his profession. He has also suffered decades of chronic pain and an addiction to opioids due to psoriatic arthritis and a career filled with serious injuries on the racetrack.
I've broken my leg, broken both ankles, broken 8 ribs, punctured lungs, 5 major concussions, 2 of them very significant, like in self-induced coma.
Kruger has lived in what he describes as a circle of pain, along with his addiction, but he says the good money he makes and the love of his family has allowed him to ignore it and keep it hidden for quite a while.
I was this quiet addict. I was just dealing with it on my own, and my career has been very successful also financially. So, you know, if you look at it from the outside, you're like, here's this guy who's getting lots of press, his house keeps getting bigger, his cars keep getting nicer, like this American dream type thing. What in the world could be wrong with him?
Kruger was scrolling the web one day when he stumbled on a YouTube video featuring Eric Garland and a therapy he'd never even imagined. That's when Kruger reached out to Garland and learned how to meditate. Garland is a professor of psychiatry at UC San Diego. He says he's spent 20 years testing a treatment that goes by the acronym MORE. It stands for Mindfulness-Oriented Recovery Enhancement. It's rooted in meditation and, Garland says, seeks to give people self-awareness and self-control.
So mindfulness is really a practice of becoming aware of what's happening in the present moment and gaining some perspective on it. But in doing this, you're really training the brain to function differently, to have greater control over your brain's and your body's responses to stress, to pain, to craving, etc.
Testing brain reactions in people with chronic pain who use opioids show some of them have a hard time enjoying moments of natural beauty, like looking at a flower or watching children at play.
And so we first showed that people with an opioid use disorder had this difficulty in savoring natural, healthy pleasure, as shown by the brain. And the greater the difficulty they had in savoring, the more intense their cravings for opioids were.
Garland says their test samples show this mindfulness therapy reduced opioid misuse by 45% at a 9-month follow-up point. He says 50% of people treated with the therapy have shown a clinically significant reduction in pain. Kruger says 3 years since his introduction to the therapy, things are going much better.
My chronic pain is 25% less than it was while I was on opioids. So my chronic pain is lower. I have it. I have it right now as I speak to you, but it is absolutely manageable.
Garland and his research team published a study about MORE therapy last month in JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
Today, the Trump administration is restarting a collection of defaulted federal student loans. It's part of a broader effort to roll back loan forgiveness policies and dismantle the Department of Education. Amy Kiley reports on what experts say borrowers should do, even if they don't think they've defaulted.
You can't just say, well, I think that'll all work itself out.
Collection of defaulted federal student loans resumes today after a 5-year pause related to the pandemic. Defaulting usually means missing payments for 270 days or more. The government says that can now lead to garnishment of state or federal benefits. It says it'll start garnishing wages this summer.
If your debt gets sent to collections, that goes onto your credit report, and that can impact your ability to get an apartment, a mortgage, a car loan, even some employers check.
The Department of Education estimates about 5 million borrowers have defaulted on student loans. It says another 4 million are at least 90 days late on payments. Experts suggest all borrowers visit their loan provider's website to confirm their status and update their contact information. If a person is worried about defaulting, experts say they could look into an income-based repayment plan. Payment pauses, called deferment or forbearance, or consolidation or refinancing. The DOE says a person with a defaulted loan can learn their options through the Student Aid Office's Default Resolution Group. They might be able to restore their status through a process called rehabilitation.
It's time to, buckle down and figure out how you can make those payments.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
Could a $5,000 bonus persuade families to have more kids? It's something President Trump has expressed interest in the proposal. Birth rates have been declining the last few years, and Trump is hoping this could help boost those numbers. But advocates worry more needs to be done to make raising kids more affordable. Jen Sullivan looks at rising costs.
Childcare costs have risen dramatically in the last few years, and families are feeling the financial squeeze.
When you're juggling both work and family and navigating the economy and just the costs associated with families, it adds up.
Jocelyn Fry is the president of the National Partnership for Women and Families, a nonprofit that advocates for parents and children, including finding solutions to make costs more affordable.
We don't want your child care to be larger than your mortgage.
A recent study by loan facilitator LendingTree found the cost to raise a child was nearly $300,000 over 18 years. That doesn't even include college tuition. They factored in a variety of costs, including housing, food, clothes, insurance, and daycare, which saw the biggest jump in price, rising more than 50% in 2 years. As costs increase, birth rates are declining. President Donald Trump may want to change that and is considering offering new parents a $5,000 bonus to have more kids. But Fry worries that's not nearly enough.
We have to step back and say what really helps families.
She'd like to see more states offer paid family leave. So far, 13 states and the District of Columbia have passed laws that require employers to offer some type of paid leave for all new parents. For Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
For the last few months, we've been reporting on the effect of Trump administration tariffs in San Diego County. Even with a 90-day pause on many tariffs, businesses are still on edge because of uncertainty about the future. But KPBS reporter John Carroll tells us about one huge part of the county's economy where there's not much anxiety yet.
It's kind of like a quilt, all the squares. We don't have one chunk. It's kind of a patchwork.
Fourth-generation farmer Andy Lyle telling me which part of the lush Palma Valley below is his family's farm. The scene is illustrative of much of San Diego County's agricultural landscape. Down on the farm, his family actually calls it a ranch, Lyle talks about the crops he and his family have grown here for decades.
Citrus, oranges, mandarins are probably about 80%. Maybe 90% of our acreage here, and about 10% avocados.
The Lyle operation encompasses about 200 acres, rows of trees heavy with fruit. Andy Lyle loves what he does.
I love when I give my friends some of our oranges or avocados, and they're like, that's the best orange I've ever had, or that's the best avocado I've ever had, or orange juice, or whatever it is. It's I love that. I love being able to produce good, nutritious, safe food for people.
But against this bucolic background, there is concern in the farming community.
There's a lot of unknowns, particularly because of the 90-day pause now that was imposed.
Dana Groot is the president of the San Diego County Farm Bureau. He's talking about the T word, tariffs.
The feeling among the farming community is kind of a wait-and-see attitude.
Part of the reason there's not the same level of anxiety as at other non-agricultural businesses is farmers have been through this before.
This is not the first go-around for San Diego County farmers. We had some experience with tariffs under Trump's first presidency, and there were consequences for some of the growers, particularly exporting to Canada.
Back in the Lyle orange groves, what Groot describes, the wait-and-see attitude, is the order of the day.
Because I don't really know how it's going to play out. I think ultimately, I think it's important that we have food security here in the United States, that we have American farmers producing food for American people first.
Still, Groot says there is reason to be concerned.
On the troubling side, of course, is input costs may increase, whether it's packaging, plastic materials perhaps from China, or fertilizer inputs could increase dramatically. On the export markets, we're not too concerned about Mexico. Canada later in the growing season might be an issue. Again, a lot remains to be seen.
When it comes to agriculture in San Diego County, far and away the #1 product is bedding plants, perennials, color. Think flowers in general. They're pretty much tariff-proof because they pretty much stay in the United States. Not so with avocados and citrus.
Lyle is fortunate, though. He leaves the sale of his product to others. He says the folks who market his fruit learned from the last go-round.
They've done a really good job of finding more of a domestic market and just some other options so that we're not surprised by tariffs.
And there's something else, something that's ingrained in farmers across the country.
Farmers as a group tend to be a little more accustomed to variables that are not within their control. So it's perhaps a little less of a stress for them because it's always kind of a wait and see.
As the agricultural community waits to see what will happen with tariffs, one important data point to keep in mind. Agriculture is the 4th largest economic driver in this county at nearly $1.2 billion a year. Groot says if you count the services that depend on agriculture, it's more than $4 billion. Lots of reasons to wait and see and hope that if they come, tariffs don't tarnish one of San Diego County's economic crown jewels. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Well, as we head into tonight, I'm tracking another mild start here for your early Tuesday. Overnight lows will dip into the mid to upper 50s, and we will see once again some pretty dense cloud coverage there along the coastal areas primarily. But across the rest of the region, you can see partly to mostly cloudy skies here as the sun comes up. Overnight lows will primarily be in the 50s. It'll be a pretty mild start here for your early Tuesday morning. 56 tonight for both Oceanside and Camp Pendleton. Future track radar is showing lots of rainfall here across the Four Corners and off to the east, but overall just cloudy skies here as we head throughout your Tuesday. There's 9 a.m. By lunchtime, we will start to see some of that cloud coverage slowly starting to work its way off the coast, but you'll still see by about 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, still tracking some showers, but the rainfall is going to stay well off to the east here as we head throughout your Tuesday and as we head into Wednesday. Here's the overall setup for Tuesday. Warm and nice weather will continue here, but still watching out for that rainfall there across the Four Corners and across the east. Temperature-wise here for your Tuesday afternoon, lots of sunshine. You'll see widespread 60s. We'll see some 80s in the deserts. We'll see some 50s there at higher elevations. And then as we head into Wednesday, warmer air to the north, still staying dry here across the coastal regions as we head throughout at least your Tuesday. So for that extended forecast, overall, not too bad here across the coast. We'll see temperatures in the 60s for Tuesday, 70s starting Wednesday, and we can even see some 80s by the weekend. Across the inland areas, we'll see 60s for Tuesday, 70s Wednesday, Thursday, and then we'll see some mid-80s there starting on Friday. The mountain forecast, we're going to be warming up as well, going from the 50s on Tuesday to the upper 70s by the weekend. And we're going to see lots of sunshine in the forecast. For the desert areas, we'll be in the 80s for Tuesday and Wednesday, 90s for Thursday and Friday. And then, yes, it looks like we'll see triple-digit heat back in the forecast there on Saturday.
Did you know that if you go back in time, there used to be a place in our county that was completely devoted to time? So we thought it was time to hit rewind for this story about San Diego, and here is Ken Kramer.
Corner of Fresno and Tremont Streets in Chula Vista. 117 years ago on this corner, you might have thought you were in Switzerland. Because you see here, they made watches like this one. Look, on the face of it, you can read the location where it was made. Says Otay, California.
That's right, Otay. Just like Otay Lakes or Otay Valley, did you know there used to be a factory right here that produced the Otay pocket watch?
It employed a good number of Otay people in the assembly plant at the Otay Watch Works, a 3-story brick building with the office right next door. In 1890, it was an imposing place. The watches were not spectacular, well enough made. Sad to say, though, they just cost too much, about $50. If you happen to have one of them around, though, good for you, and lucky too. According to collectors and jewelers and watch fans, a good one can be worth up to $2,000. Not a trace of the place remains today. There's construction on the corner, and it's been over a century now. Nobody's going to remember the Otay Watch Works. But you might check and see if you have a watch that says Otay, for it was and is something made in our county and just full of history about San Diego.
And if you want to see more of Ken Kramer's stories about San Diego, you could tune in every Thursday night at 8 o'clock for a half hour of them right here on KPBS. We had planned to share an update about the tentative deal reached to possibly end the 6-month strike at Kaiser Permanente. Due to technical difficulties, we were unable to show it on tonight's evening edition, but you can hear the story on Morning Edition on 89.5 KPBS FM tomorrow morning. And the story is also available now on our website, kpbs.org. And an NPR survey of more than 500 political scientists shows the majority believe America is barreling toward authoritarianism. We discuss with a panel of experts on KPBS Midday Edition. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Previs Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.